Hello and welcome back to this week's edition of the Crypto Chronicle Podcast. I am Mitchell and this is William, your founder of Imperial Wealth and Mining Store. It's been a long time, William.
It has. We're well rested though, aren't we?
Oh yeah, well rested in terms of podcasters. I think our last podcast was probably towards middle to late July. We obviously haven't been recording many podcasts or any podcasts, sorry, because Will and I were lucky enough to go to the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, Tennessee.
Unreal, wasn't it?
Unreal, yeah. So personally for me, awesome event. I don't actually know the attendance numbers of it, but me and Will were able to get a taste of Consensus 2022.
Yes.
So 2 years apart, obviously very different stages of the market, very different stages of the technology, really. I think the easiest way to kind of distinguish the two was Consensus was a lot more altcoins.
I remember it just being like, for us, we didn't get as much enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
It was very like techie technology. It was less about investing side.
Yeah.
Interesting, but it was, I felt Bitcoin 2024, like it was better all round.
Yeah, that was the pure maxi one to go to.
Exactly right.
And yeah, I think for us, well, probably for me personally, given I'm largely a trader and investor and kind of on that tech side more so, but for me it was a real eye-opener to see the amount of institutional miners there, I reckon. Yes. Given Bitcoin is only just starting to get L2s and Taproot and all of this new tech to it, which you can build on, it doesn't really have many projects or anything on it.
100%, yeah. It was like, even Consensus, there was a bit of mining going on there.
Yeah, a little bit.
It was mostly in the stalls. It wasn't like big, mining operations, but this was all mining, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Big scale mining, huge containers everywhere.
Yeah, so it was like your marathons. I think we spoke with Bitwise for a bit. So yeah, the whole shebang. And then obviously the biggest things, the biggest thing to come out of Nashville was that Donald J. Trump, obviously, Donald J. Trump attended the rally. We also had Robert Kennedy Jr., Michael Saylor, obviously the great Bitcoin maxi. And so there was all these different variety of speakers, but obviously the biggest one to come out of it was Donald Trump, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of like publicity side and going into it, it was definitely what I was most excited to go and see, leading into Bitcoin 2024. I think the stalls were good for a day or so, but only so much Bitcoin mining operations you can see. Yeah. And we actually spent a lot of our time in the speaking panel and just
that was
listening to the speeches that were going on. Donald's was good, but there were some brilliant speakers there, some speakers we listened to, which we'll go through.
Definitely. Obviously Donald was the biggest, but even just touching on Kennedy, I thought he was a lot more impressive from 100%. A pure Bitcoin and maximalist kind of agenda. I think he mentioned he's got majority of his net worth now in Bitcoin. Yep. I remember Consensus last year, or maybe I was writing an article about him this year at Consensus, but he spoke about how he gave all his children a couple of Bitcoin each. So really, when you listen to him speak as well, when he spoke of the core principles of Bitcoin, breaking away from the Federal Reserve, hyperinflation, the US dollar, it was really refreshing to hear someone that's so high up in politics give their real perspective on how they view it.
And he wasn't just like, obviously he was reading off a prompter, but you could tell he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, which
was the biggest difference with Donald. It's like, remember that bit? What did he say? He said, I'll be getting rid of Gary Gensler. And then everyone just goes nuts. Way more of a reaction than what he was expecting, right? Yeah. And then you kind of realize, he says it again. I better say that again. He had no idea.
Oh, he was a classic. And I think the biggest thing for him is knowing he didn't do his own study on Bitcoin or cryptos. He kept actually mixing up crypto with Bitcoin.
Yeah, correct.
And I think if you're a Bitcoin maximalist, which there are a few of you out there that probably hate ETH and you hate alts and you hate crypto, but you love Bitcoin, you wouldn't have liked his speech because he kept kind of, telling, I'll make sure your cryptos are all good and everyone there's there for Bitcoin, not for crypto. Obviously us, we were there for all of it, but
as you're saying, that was the difference with Kennedy. Like you could tell this guy, he wasn't saying he's an expert on it. He was honest. He got into 2 or 3 years ago, was it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He wasn't saying he's been in it since the start, but he was genuinely, this is the future. This is, where I want to have a lot of my net wealth. So.
Yeah. And then obviously the largest kind of drama piece or largest piece of news to come out of the event was Trump pledging to halt any sale of the 213,000 confiscated Bitcoins that the government holds. So that was through various, obviously, criminal investigations and cases where the DOJ were able to acquire this Bitcoin and then just been holding it. Obviously, all of you out there have seen all the drama attached to, the government moving wallets and whatnot, causing large sell-offs recently. But he essentially declared that as part of his administration, they're going to keep it and then they're going to use it as strategic reserve, which was
buy more as well. So that was the thing I was going to say. Kennedy spoke the day before, and that was a big thing he said. We're putting on reserve. I'll be putting out a schedule to buy, and Donald came out and said pretty much the same thing. That's what he would do as well. It was just good to hear, wasn't it?
And I think,
first time you hear not only big politicians talking about Bitcoin and crypto, but talking about putting on the treasury of the US.
Crazy. And I think, probably the biggest thing for our miners out there was, he wasn't just centered around the reserves and the actual, Bitcoins themselves. He actually spoke a fair bit on mining and energy, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So the thing that he was basically saying, like in his way as well, we're going to drill, baby, drill.
Well, I remember he kept saying, you're going to have so much electricity, you're
going to be begging me for
no more electricity, no more electricity.
It was entertaining, but the moral of what he was saying is, America has a great opportunity to compete in the energy market. He's going to drill, baby, drill, get energy prices low. And essentially, that's going to attract so much of what is the best thing for Bitcoin miners, right? Is cheap electricity, and that was a nice angle that he was saying. I think that was probably the area of his speech that he sounded most confident on speaking on, right? He understood the relationship between mining and electricity. He obviously understands the energy market enough, and that was his biggest personal push, I felt.
For sure. But his PR team does a really good job because there was the Bitcoin reserves and the Bitcoin mining, but then there was also those small things woven in, wasn't there? So there was the Ross Ubrit releasing. So he said as soon as he's voted in, he'll release Ross, who was the Silk Road founder, who I think majority of those Bitcoins was actually that's what they're from.
Correct, yeah.
And then he also...
Remember lining up, we got those shirts. Job. You're getting it to every single person in there. Got given a T-shirt.
Yeah, so. I've still got one at home.
Yeah, so. I unpacked it after the long travels. Bit crinkled, but...
Yeah, so he also expressed development... the support for the development and use of stable coins, which is also a really massive thing. And we're able to see, the name escapes me, but we're able to see a really big institutional investor speak on Tether.
Yes, correct.
And I think really the best part about that speech was reassurance.
Because we always talk about it. It's like one of those things, I can't give a perfect example, something you use in your daily life and there's probably not the best thing to use, but there's not really an alternative, right? And USDT is a bit like that. A lot of us fund our trading accounts with USDT, do transactions. If if I want to sell into a stablecoin, usually it's USDT or USDC. But we all know that it's got a bit of a shonky, shady past, right? There was just he basically was a big fund manager. And his company did the audit into.
So they Tether. Audited. Well, they had to audit the entirety of it because I think they're in large partnership with them.
Yes.
And really what his main point of USDC versus USDT, there were a number of auditing things that he brought up with, but the main thing was that you go on USDT and you go on whale alerts or whatever, and you'll see on Twitter, every time there's a big pump in the market, it'll be $1 billion is minted at USD at the treasury for Tether, and that's just given to someone. So that's someone giving them $1 million in cash, redeeming $1 billion in cash, redeeming $1 billion USDT. You can't do that on USDC, so you can only redeem. I think it was something like he said if he went to USDC, they can only redeem $1 million per week. And he's like, as big fund managers, you're seeing these ETFs approved, seeing all these inflows. BlackRock, they're not going to be able to use these guys.
Correct.
But we can post a few more details on that. We can post potentially the audit or something. I'll try and get that in the Chronicle. But I think that was a really underrated part of it because at least in the back of my mind as someone that's been in this industry for many years, as you said, always using it, but I just hope this doesn't come crumbling down because if USDT came crumbling down, the entire crypto industry would.
I remember, I think it was maybe we were messaging each other. USDT was depegging. And it was one of the, I think it was Easter, was it?
Well, that was actually USDC when that was happening.
That's right.
So that was when Silverbank and all the American banks went down.
That's right.
And
that's
USDC
was... it was USDC. But as an example, anyway, for the story, it's just that it was it was just a short. It wasn't actually a depegging event where people were losing trust. It was just in the short term, people couldn't redeem the amount back. But yeah, you're right. It was USDC, not DUSD.
Yeah.
But yeah, massive. Just like hearing that confirmation, even for crypto veterans like us, and it was just good to hear. I think one of the biggest things you were saying is in the past they didn't necessarily have dollar for dollar. They were investing with the money as well, having bonds or
I think that's the best part about Tether is they're literally like they're getting all this cash right and redeeming it, and they can literally just put it in US bonds and earn 5% per year, right?
Correct.
That's a revenue stream for them. And then what they're also doing is they're investing 5% of their fees they're making into Bitcoin. So they've got their own Bitcoin reserve, which they've been doing over the last year, 2 years. Yeah, and they're just making crazy profits because like it's gone up, 4x in the last year, 2 years. So really USDT is kind of like MicroStrategy. It's like this niche company that's got this really cool revenue stream that no other company in the world has, and it's just beating everyone else.
It's such a win-win for them. Like if Bitcoin keeps doing what it's doing and acts as a storage of value, right? Great for the market. That's so important for them because if there's no Bitcoin, no crypto market, no one's going to use USDT.
No.
And things have played out well. So as you said, they're making a crazy amount of profit on the balance sheet. So I didn't know that they were doing that, but that's interesting.
Yeah. So anything else really to say about the conference? I think that's probably...
Sure, those little bits and pieces will pop up. But just in general, was like the biggest thing for me was just hearing politicians talking about crypto, understanding it, even if it's at paper value, and accepting that this is actually a solution forward.
Well, I think it's kind of a surreal feeling, isn't it? Because even 1 year ago, but I'll say 2 years ago when I went to Consensus at the same time, if you had asked me, maybe optimistically, I would have said, by the 2024 election, you'll have both candidates fighting over the crypto vote, and there'll be all this game theory, and Donald Trump will be at a crypto event I'm attending, and he'll speak on Bitcoin. I would have,
no chance.
No chance. So, and there was always that afterthought, wasn't it? Like, imagine the day when we finally when the politicians get on board.
Literally.
Or, this year, the amount of bullish catalysts that you don't realize you always begged for are happening. So, imagine the day when banks accept Bitcoin and, all these Morgan Stanleys, all these, American banks are stacking this Bitcoin ETF on their balance sheets, as strategic reserves themselves because they need to be exposed to such an asset with such upside, don't they?
And that final point that we said, if Trump gets in power and he sticks to his word, all countries are going to be going, well, shit, we can't let the US, be a powerful player of holding 5% of Bitcoin. We need to
just to touch on that was his big point that he kind of kept mentioning about the strategy. Well, China, if China do it first and we're second to it, we're in trouble. So, crazy stuff. But moving on to a bit of a different topic, obviously outside of Bitcoin, and actually a coin we've spoken on a fair bit. I think even in the last podcast when I spoke with Ian, who's a builder on Solana, we actually spoke about Fantom and its movement to Sonic because obviously they're very, very comparable layer one solutions. But we want to have a bit of a talk about Sonic at the moment because it's a bit of the heater in the market, isn't it?
It's the one it's in the limelight. It's they've got the testnet running now.
Yeah, they've got the testnet running.
And on that, we spoke for our Trading Academy members in particular. There was a frustrating period. Or was it February, April?
Yeah, March.
Yeah. And, they were meant to have launched Sonic by then. Yeah. And I was actually thinking on the drive to work today, kind of brilliant that they've done it now.
I literally said to Ian yesterday, finally, the same guy, I was speaking to him, and I was like I remember burning so hard for months after, because I expected the market, for those that watched it, to get some continuation or get probably faster halving appreciation, because obviously this has been the longest, which we'll touch on a bit later.
Yep.
And I was so upset because it's like, I bought Fantom at 18 cents, 22 cents, and 35 cents in the Trading Academy or something, and it's like, finally, the big Sonic upgrade's coming. They solved the multi-chain incident. Andre's back. And so price went from literally like 25 cents to $1.25. And Fantom outperformed the entirety of the market. Bitcoin, Solana, your favorite meme coin. Like, it outperformed everything. And then, in a whisker, when they said, actually, it's not coming out. Just dust. But it's the most, and this will be a somewhat tip for those out there. If there is an investment you want to look into an altcoin, a high conviction one, you should really look into Sonic, because essentially if you want to go back and look at the chart and you think Bitcoin, or we will get an alt season in the coming months, really just look at Sonic and see that it went to $1.25 on, the
back of news to come.
Which was obviously when Bitcoin was, going up very high. So it was just easy to get that demand flowing through. At the moment, Bitcoin's at 55,000. Fantom's still up 40% this month. I think Bitcoin's traded down from as high as 65,000 to 55,000. Equal, which we'll speak on next, is up 80%. So really this ecosystem it's heating up, and it's off the back of the tech, isn't it?
100%. Well, it's like we're in a position where, as you said, we know that Fantom did get to $1.25, and that was without the testnet even being out.
Yeah.
Really, the only thing is all altcoins are suppressed, right?
Yeah.
Across the board, it'd be interesting to look at Bitcoin dominance back then compared to now.
It's only gone up. So
exactly.
Bitcoin dominance is pretty much at cycle highs now, 57.5%, give or take a couple of points.
Just seeing in like the last 3 days, just the testnet being successful and Fantom outperforming the market.
Oh, yeah.
I think, like, for me, it's the highest RR in terms of altcoins right now.
And really, if you are a risk-averse investor, or even just, given this current market and how you have to be very careful, it's not like the old days where everything went up. Really, the question you just have to be asking yourself, if you've got park funds, will this investment outperform Bitcoin? Because if you don't think it will, or you're a bit 50-50, then obviously you should just put it into Bitcoin, because that's the safest there is, isn't there? Yeah. Just going back to Sonic. So now it's scheduled for November, December.
Yep.
I think the biggest incentives and why it's going to get so much popularity is, before I go on to the tech, is that it's got 190 million Sonic airdrop happening. So, Sonic's price, let's call it 50 cents right now. That's a $95 million airdrop.
Yes.
It's got gas incentives. So 80% of gas fees earned on Fantom go all back to the builders.
Yes.
And more importantly, the tech. So they've achieved a 720 ms time to finality on their transaction, which completely sets it apart from other blockchains.
That's 720 milliseconds, yeah?
Yeah. No, 720... Yes, no.
Milliseconds.
7.2 seconds. So time to finality is like...
Got you.
So like you'll send a transaction on Thingo, and then like by the time you look out, like it'll be there.
All right, so 7 seconds later.
Yeah.
Like done and done.
Yeah, because the transactions... Because people they look at other metrics. So Solana can do, say, 40,000 transactions per second, but has to go through all these blocks that by the time you've done half your transactions on Solana, they've failed, or they've taken like 30 seconds to actually get to where they need to. So the way that Andre has built, the mastermind behind the Fantom network, is positioning it as the fastest network there is. Let's just call it that in totality, when everything matters. It's a significant milestone. It's only helped the price action, and then as we said, with the airdrop, the gas incentives, they've got a quest thing I can post in the Chronicle. It's all looking really good. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're interested in layer 1 solutions, this is something you could look into, because not only is it the best tech in terms of speed, it's going to have a gateway to Ethereum that makes it a layer 2, amongst other things. So it's pretty crazy.
No, it's definitely, we can't talk about it this whole podcast, but for anyone listening, definitely worth looking into it. Like, as I said, I personally am not overly wowed by investing into altcoins if I don't have to right now, unless it's like, that's too good to be true. Or like, I really like the look of it, but Fantom, I've been dollar cost averaging out through the whole year anyway. So but we'll touch on Equal as well. Yeah,
well, so obviously, it's probably going back 2 years now. Like, we've been long supporters at IW of Equal, and it's because Blake Hooper, you even did a podcast with him one time, didn't you?
Great bloke.
Yeah, great bloke.
Came to the Oz Crypto Con as
last year,
Has miners with us as well. Yeah. Bitcoin miner too, so like him.
So obviously, he runs the VE33 model, which is, once again, Andre Tech, and it's from Solidity. And it comes from Fantom, but obviously the big thing with Equal with us is, we like it as a token to invest in, but it's the DeFi opportunities, is it?
Yeah, exactly right. And, the platform, I feel is really easy to use.
I agree.
Probably one of the first, obviously Mitch runs the Trading Academy, which is investing and trading. And I predominantly work on the DeFi side quite a lot as well. And it's pretty much one of the first DeFi plays that, I like to get our clients on. It's easily set up. You got the VE token, which is basically giving you a portion of fees and things generated on the platform. You've also got the bribing side of things. It's the thing that I love about it is it's one of those ones you don't have to, you're earning interest and yield on the positions, right? But you don't have to check in on it every second or third day. Like I've had this play set up for over a year now. Been staking on their platform. Awesome platform to check out. If you haven't already got into DeFi, you need to. As Mitch said, the airdrops alone, right? Like our Trading Academy members who have bought Fantom, bought Equaliser, that's going to be points. For this Sonic airdrop. So hopefully even people that haven't really got full into the DeFi and are more just investors, well, you might receive an airdrop on Sonic, and this might be your entry into DeFi. So looking forward to it. Can't wait for the market to start pumping and you just get these like airdrops, you get new projects going again. It's such a fun time, but
for sure,
it's important to stay diligent now as well.
And just remember, like anyone that is interested, in things that we do when the market is stagnant, there are two main things that we do. We either teach our clients all about DeFi, where they can be earning yield on their positions, or lending, borrowing, airdrop farming, an array of a number of things that we've got a course for that teaches you all to do this by yourself. And then additionally, we have a trading course, an advanced trading course, which can teach you to short the market in times of bearishness, to scalp trades throughout the week when price is going up and down. And, all this market's done, it's chopped for 8 months. So if you've sat on your hands, it's been extremely excruciating. If you've been trading it, if you've been, DeFiing it, then you've probably come out in the green. So
100%. It's a holistic approach. And when we come to CryptoCon, which we're a major sponsor of this year, we're a sponsor of the main stage, and I'll be doing a probably 20-25 minute speech. I believe you're going to be joining me up there this year.
Yes. Actually,
we're going to be going through our holistic approach. And it's you don't have to start with a holistic approach, do you? You don't have to get the Bitcoin rising. You don't have to get the investing, or you don't have to do the DeFi all at once. You can start with just on investing into your altcoin
people
portfolio.
Do it the different way around for sure.
But once you do get across all three of those areas, it changes the whole investment, doesn't it?
For sure.
But we'll give more details on that come the CryptoCon event.
So I was going to speak a bit on Andre's tech a bit further and unsecured lending in the credit market, but that might be for another time. I think what we should talk about, whilst we are talking about the stagnant and choppy market, is, I made these comments to my Trading Academy members. I honestly feel from this entirety of this cycle, we've had so many ups and downs in terms of black swans, bullish catalysts, so many different eras, I would like to say, of sentiment. And I definitely think that right now is probably the worst sentiment I can remember, even like kind of equaling FTX era, because then it was different because you just had no hope, no despair. It was, we're literally just going to survive this or we're done. Whereas right now it's like a lot of people questioning what is going on. Like we're so high up, but the alts haven't gone yet. And what happens if the recession comes and the economy crashes, or what happens if Donald Trump doesn't? So there's all these bearish overhangs that are making this sentiment really badly. So what I like to do kind of every now and then is kind of go through it myself and then explain it to my clients, different top indicators, bottom signals, and really just getting that kind of zoomed out approach. And it's funnily enough, like with Taylor above, who is not the biggest trader and investor, but he's got his own trading view, and he said to me today, he said, I've only just started using the weekly time frame and I'm never going to use another one again. And it's funny I say that like so much to people that don't understand well. I'd say turn off the 15-minute chart, turn off the 1 hour, turn off the daily chart even. If you literally had put your chart to monthly on Bitcoin, you wouldn't have been bearish once. If that's 100%. All you checked, and even the weekly. So it's pretty funny like that. But anyways, I was quickly going to mention 3 top signals I've actually spoken about before. You can actually go and read on 2 of these in my Mt. Gox article that, I think I put out for 2 to 3 months ago when price was the exact same, and I said BTC will weather the storm, don't worry about it. And look, we have. But one of them is the MV-RVZ score. Usually what happens with this one is a top signal will usually happen around a figure of 6, which has in all prior cycles. We haven't even seen 3 this cycle. So if you want to go off a lot of Bitcoin on-chain metrics, this suggests that we're nowhere near the top of the cycle. Another one is obviously the infamous pi cycle top indicator, which a lot of people use, which is when the 111-day SMA crosses back above the 2 by 350-day SMA. This is obviously yet to happen. And then the pure multiple is more around daily issuance, mining, the halvings and whatnot. But typically in prior cycles, when this has gone above 4, it suggests that miner revenue is so high compared to the average, which obviously suggesting price is so significantly high, that usually marks a market peak or a market top. So we're on 0.7 to 0.8, so we're not even a quarter of 4. And then if you want to look at any other kind of general technicals, we're still above 55,000. We've still got bullish market structure on higher time frames. We've still never closed a monthly candle. Like if you draw from prior ATH candles and you have this support resistance flip, which I'll show, which many of you would have seen, we've never really closed below that either. So,
so it's like, it was literally like, I applaud you for the Trading Academy members. They obviously got the full report. And even for me, I read it and I was like, it's just so true. It's so easy to get sucked into periods of doom and gloom and just start feeling like getting frustrated. Like hurry up and just take off with the market. But when you look at it from that outsider perspective, it's not far off. Like we're literally coming into, the election coming up. And in general, I think one of the things you spoke about there was global liquidity as well. That was the one that I liked the most. It's so clear. That's what it feels like right now. It just feels like the liquidity, the funds are not there to push Bitcoin above 70K, to push more money into the altcoin market, right?
Exactly.
As soon as that happened, the taps open, we've got interest rates coming down, it's all lining up to be. So much can change in 3 months, and I do genuinely believe, give it 3 months time and we're going to be in a completely different market.
Yeah, and I think the hardest thing for 99% of traders, I should say investors in cryptocurrency, particularly those that might be their first cycle, is they actually don't realize that 99% of cryptocurrency days are red or it's chop, and you only get about 10 days a year where Bitcoin goes bang, and that makes up most of the gains. So what I mean by that is we might have, in coming months when rates are cut, there's going to be continued chop, might be a few sell in here, and we get a 3-day period where Bitcoin will go from 60,000 to 85,000, and that's it for those 3 days. But and then it might chop down $5,000 to 80,000 for the next 2 months, and then it might have a day or two where it goes up to 100,000. You get lost so easily, and like you said, it's so easy to get sucked in because it's so what you're used to most of the time is bad price action, because the good price action only happens on a very limited amount of days. So
exactly right.
It's the hardest thing to swallow.
And it happens bloody fast as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You wake up the next morning and it's 15%. I've missed my chance. Next morning, 20%.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it runs away from you.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the main points I kind of wanted to remind people of is those on-chain signals. But the global liquidity cycle is obviously a big one. For those that don't know, we have CPI data released tomorrow, I think, or maybe the day after, with PPI, which is obviously the main telling signals for recessions, inflation, monetary and fiscal policy. But the biggest thing is next week is off the back of the Jackson Hole speech. Federal Reserve Chair Jay Powell did address that they will cut rates. It's a 100% chance they cut rates. And obviously, as Will said, that's usually a massive signal for liquidity to enter the market, which we're yet to see the fruits of in this kind of global liquidity cycle, which I'll post a chart of in the written chronicle. But, in essence, what we're saying is everything's lining up really nicely. I'll post a Bitcoin cycles chart, but it's crazy that every 4 years when the global liquidity heats up, there's always a US election, and then there's always the bullish part of the Bitcoin cycle. Just happens like that every 4 years.
Some genius invented Bitcoin.
And he just tied it into US elections and the global liquidity cycle. And really, that's what you should be looking to if you're kind of losing faith. Just understand that you've got still another 4 months. Usually Q4 on the back of halvings is the most bullish, because it's been about 200-ish days since the halving. Everything's cooled off. But once you get those liquidity conditions improving, once you get Donald Trump up on election day saying Bitcoin is going to be the strategic reserve, it all gets forgotten pretty quickly.
It does indeed, and it's exciting. I think like it's definitely been hard going through probably maybe the last 3 months. I reckon.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the end of the day, I can feel the excitement levels coming up, and that's when the money's to be made. So definitely not time to be sleeping behind the wheel.
No, definitely the most important few months of this year, or almost of this cycle.
This month is probably your last chance to really get in.
And I think the beauty of it is, although for many people that have already been in the industry, it's been really tough watching altcoins if that's where most of your funds are parked. If you're someone that doesn't have any, if you haven't invested in cryptocurrency yet, but it's been something that's piqued your interest, you've seen it on the news, friends talked about it, I guarantee right now is the best absolute time you can get into it, because you've got all the upside ahead of you on pretty much everything outside of Bitcoin, but you still have plenty of upside on Bitcoin too as your core stable investment. So
100%.
I think we'll wrap it up for the first week back. It's been really good. I'll plan to get more guests in coming weeks.
Yep.
We'll get Taylor back on so Taylor can say hello to everyone.
Give the mining update.
Give us the miner update every week that we get. And really look forward to it. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.